Imagination. You have to imagine something new. So you had empty lots, abandoned swaths of land, and we were able to imagine something else.
That's the Reverend David Brawley of St. Paul Community Baptist Church in East Brooklyn, New York. And he's talking about an enterprise that's been 40 years in the making. A lot of his parishioners live in this neighborhood.
There was a time when this community was known as the murder capital of the state of New York.
Linger on that for a moment. Live there? People didn't even want to drive through the neighborhood. It was that unimaginably awful. But in the early 1980s, community organizers dreamed up an audacious plan to build privately owned houses to be sold at working-class prices. They took land that nobody wanted and turned it into something highly desirable. They called it the Nehemiah Project. It got its name from an Old Testament developer, the prophet Nehemiah, who rebuilt the walls around the ancient city of Jerusalem.
Equity.
Equity.
Right.
Equity. When you have a home, that's what you got.
It's the American dream. Everything changes when you have equity. Communities are able to build wealth. Families are able to build wealth. Life changes intergenerationally.
Here in East Brooklyn, as in many parts of the country, African American and Latino families faced rampant discrimination, getting affordable financing or even where they could buy property. You're sort of a repository of the history of this community.
Yes, I am.
Sarah Plowden is a venerated figure at St. Paul's Church, holding the honorific title of Queen Mother. She's been involved with the Nehemiah Project from the beginning when she was a church secretary, and her family lived in what used to be called the projects.
It was like living with no hope. These kids cannot imagine how bad it was.
Well, remind them.
I want to forget it.
I know you do, but I want you to remember it just for the moment.
Okay, to shut the lights off and the roaches appeared. To live with rats and mice, I don't wish that on nobody.
These were neighborhoods you drove through to go someplace else, not any place you wanted to be.
Kirk Goodrich grew up in the area to become an affordable housing developer. One, it should be noted, who has helped transform this East Brooklyn neighborhood.
This was landfill.
Landfill sounds like such a nice neutral term. What does landfill
Trash
mean?
dump.
Trash dump.
Right. People would come here and dump dead pets, although I didn't see it. I'm sure bodies were, here.
But what was also buried under all that rubble and garbage was opportunity.
To continue in the struggle.
Those community organizers came from local churches and worked with the Industrial Areas Foundation, the engine driving the Nehemiah Project.
We came from the struggle. Are you ready for the resurrection of your community?
EBC, East Brooklyn Churches, worked with local people to raise money that could be used for loans. They mobilized the community to put pressure on local politicians. Back then, Ed Koch was the mayor of New York City.
You came to a big open meeting, they'd bring in 500 people, they would cheer you, they would boo you, whatever it is to manipulate you.
And the pressure paid off. Koch sold 16 square blocks of New York City property at $1 a lot, and the city provided subsidies. Under a Democrat mayor, sure. But how about this fellow?
We're going to make sure that there's enough funding in the budget so that Spring Creek can begin, so that it can begin on time, and so that it won't be interrupted.
That's right, the Republican mayor of New York, Rudy Giuliani. And all the while, East Brooklyn churches raised millions toward a fund that helped defray costs.
I want to go pick me up some of that dirt.
Even so, initially, there were very few takers.
When I got to look at the area, though, I was not excited, I'll tell you that.
Matilda Dyer, an immigrant from the Caribbean island Dominica. She worked as a nurse. Her husband Clinton worked as a welder. They were not easily discouraged.
It was totally abandoned. It didn't seem possible that you could have a thriving community of homes.
What tipped the scales for Matilda Dyer was that the project was being put together by East Brooklyn churches.
I didn't know all about EBC, but I know it was churches, and I know with churches, God is in the center.
You are describing what is often referred to as an act of faith.
It is. It was faith. And after I stepped forth, 3 or 4 of my friends, they purchased homes in there.
Those first Nehemiah homes cost $40,000. Now, this was almost 40 years ago. For many homeowners like the Dyers, the mortgage payments were actually less than the rent they had been paying. Soon, those Nehemiah homes became so popular that people had to enter lotteries just for the chance of owning a home. People like Sandra and Armando Martinez. He was a political refugee from El Salvador. Both of them were teachers, each working 2 jobs to raise their 2 children, whom they helped put through college.
2002, we went to church on a Sunday, like always. The priest told us that it will be a coupon in the newspaper to apply for affordable houses.
And then what happened? Then you waited.
Then we waited.
How long before they called you?
5 years after, say that we have...
5 years later?
Yes.
They pull the number, you move into the house.
No, we had the number, so that means we eventually, one day, will have a house.
I stand as witness. A dream can become a reality. It was a struggle for me to own it, but it was worth it.
By the early 1990s, Miss Plowden, who worked at St. Paul's Church, finally could afford to buy a home of her own. How much did you pay for your home? Do you remember?
Yes, I do remember. It was $120,000.
And what is your home worth now?
Over $500,000.
So when you pass on and you leave that to your children, you're leaving an estate.
Yes, I am, but I don't intend to leave them a paid-for house. I intend to enjoy my money and my house.
Message received. All 3 of Miss Plowden's sons own property of their own. Overall, the Nehemiah homes have created an estimated $1.5 billion in wealth for first-time Black and Latino homeowners. Here's developer Kirk Goodrich.
This is the most consequential, important community development effort in our country because it was done by one organization over 40-plus years, and they've never stopped.
There are Nehemiah projects at various stages of development around the country. So far, they've built 6,500 homes. The houses are quite literally the foundation. But the owners, says the Reverend Brawley, they're the ones who breathe life into a community.
People who are city workers who now own a home, people who have come out of public housing, teachers, law enforcement officers, fire department workers who now own their own homes.
And the harder the struggle to get here, the greater the sense of achievement. It took the Martinez family 7 years to get their house.
This is our palace, and every day we thank God. We think that every other families should have the same opportunity.
You can't be what you can't see. Nehemiah, for us, is something for everybody to see. It is possible.
As you like to say in this building, amen.
Amen.